welcome to your Startline video. So in hoopers, it is very important for your dog to have a weight because often we have to leave them quite a distance to manage a course. So today we're going to show you how to start off that start line. So with this dog today, we're going to show you the sit position for the start line. So your dog needs to already know how to sit. So we're going to ask for a sit. Good girl. Then all we're going to do is we're going to feed them multiple treats whilst they're in that sit. Then we'll pause, keep our body still and give a release word, okay, and then we throw the treat. So we haven't got any equipment at all, we're just doing this without equipment to start with because the equipment will be a big distraction at this point. Sit. Good girl. So with this dog in particular, I have used Kamal's reward marker words, and I use a reward marker word that tells her I'm going to feed her in position. So as soon as we know that the dog will sit nicely and take the food in that position without coming up for it. Yeah. So she's keeping her bum nice and firmly on the ground. We can introduce a reward marker that tells her I'm going to come back and I'm going to feed her. Yeah? So we're going to say snack, snack. We're going to pause, body completely still. Okay. If your dog doesn't move at this point, that's absolutely fine. We only say the release word once and then count to 1 in your head and then you're just going to throw the treat. If they know the release word, that's fine. We can start feeding them for the release every now and again. Right, so now we've managed to feed the dog in position. We've introduced a word that lets them know that we're going to give them that food in position. What we're going to do now is we're going to introduce distractions. So I always introduce distractions before I introduce distance. So we're going to get the dog in the position sit, and we can introduce a distraction of moving the food from one hand to the other, snack, and then we're going to feed the dog in position. Yeah, we can introduce a distraction of moving our hand, snack, feed the dog in position. We can stand on one leg, snack, feed them in position. Okay, she knows the okay, so I'm just going to give her a treat for releasing. The aim is to give them more treats in the stationary position than we give them for the release. The release is always going to be more rewarding for the dog than the staying still in position, because dogs like to move, they don't like to remain still. So we've got to make it more rewarding for them to stay still in position than it is for them to get up. Sit, snack. Snack. Okay. Once we've introduced distractions, we can then start to add a little bit of distance. That's where I found that the reward marker word that tells her that I'm going to come back and feed her for that position really comes into its own and really helps me get a nice, settled start line position. Now we've done our distractions, we're going to add in some distance. I'm going to put her in a position and then I'm going to move away from her. I'm only going to move away a step, a stride. We don't want to move too far away to start with. We want to build up that distance gradually. Can we sit? So I'll put her in a sit. I'm going to move a stride away, snack, and I'm going to move back. And I'm going to give her a treat in position. I then might release her. Okay. Because we don't want it to become just one long sit stay, because then it'll get boring for the dog. Ready, ready, ready. And sit. Snack. Okay. Ready? Sit. Snack. I say my reward marker word when I'm stood still or when I'm moving. So the dog doesn't start to anticipate that when I stop, I'm about to release them. Because generally on a course, we will stand still or stop, look back at the dog and then release them. So we need to build that in so the dog only releases on the verbal cue and doesn't release on the body language cues.